So hi, hello Internet. Welcome. This is Jupyter and IPython Dev Meeting for October 20th, and we still have some people all around the world. So let's start to see what happened last week. John, you're first.
Hi, everybody. Last week I did a lot of work on IPY widgets and the notebook. I had some help from Sylvan, and we actually managed to get IPY widgets 4.1 released, so that's now available on PyPI. If you guys want to install that and see what's wrong, that would be great, and submit some issues. And also, I handed over the work that I was doing on Jupyter.js input area to Jason Grout, and I think he's now taking that and either recycling it or redoing it, not quite sure. And this week, I plan to continue to finish my decoupling. I'm actually integrating PyPI with NPM completely, so NPM will manage IPY widgets in the whole release process. And that's it for me. Matthias?
Hi, Jess just joined. So
hi, hi Jess.
So I've been working with John, not you, but the other John, which is in bids, to improve and convert and have the ability to have exporters and templates in a separate library. It's slowly moving forward because I have to teach John all the thing about statelets, how things or different parts are moving around, and how you can configure things. So it's in progress. There is a PR. John is hoping, because John is a journalist, is hoping to be able to create a science journal template and be able to actually submit articles using like his library.science directly. So that's the end goal. It's slowly moving forward. I hope that it would help to create one library where people can have many themes or many different kind of way to export easily. And I've also been meeting with some IBM people from the Bay Area that are also working on notebooks in general, UI, not only Jupyter but other, and they are interested in how it integrates, how to the dynamic of open source community. And I will probably put them in contact with the other IBM folks which are on the call today. Like, they were not aware that two teams at IBM in two different places were working on Jupyter at the same time. And that's roughly it. I didn't do much other things that are worth mentioning for this week. And next one is Min, which is probably not, we have not joined because he's at a conference. And the next speaker is Dave, if you want to.
Hey. So yeah, last week was in New York with Brian and Chris and Steve and the Bloomberg guys. We did quite a lot of like fleshing out ideas for the packaging and plugins things. So there's some fairly hefty issues on the Phosphide repo about we've separated out packaging and plugins definitions into two separate issues. So everyone feel free to pile in on them. Chris put something on the end of one of the plugins ones, just to say we've kind of formalized our ideas for the interfaces for the plugin definitions. So I last week put together a pluggable demo of an app for Phosphide, just finishing that off and putting in various things like the menu things. Chris put in Phosphor top sort, so just adding in the Phosphor top sort functionality. So that'll hopefully be done this week. Basically, Steve took all the packaging stuff and I did all the pluggability stuff. So once those two emerge, we should have a pretty good demo for dynamically loading code. That's pretty much it. Hopefully, we're basically working 100% on that, trying to get a prototype out for people. Peter?
I'm here. Sorry, thought I was on mute. Looking forward, getting ready to come into New York City this weekend, meeting some of you face-to-face for the first time, so that'll be cool. Over in Docker Stacks, we put in a finer grained versioning scheme. There was a bunch of logjam going on there with people wanting to upgrade certain packages, like going to Spark 1.5 in the images, and us trying to remain compatible for people that wanted to depend on older versions. So we came up with a scheme there. Kyle, Min, myself, pinged it off some people that had suggested different things, and we're going to roll forward with that, see how it works out. But boils down to pretty much every Git commit that causes a change to the image will actually be tagged on the Docker images too. so there'll be this tight association. So if someone's interested in an older image, they could go back to the Git history, find that exact commit, and see what the content was at that time, because we do version pinning and all that. Little posts in the forum about the mass of Docker images on Docker Hub, and just trying to think through how to clean those up over time, just in the interest of, you know, people approaching the community and saying, I really want to try Jupyter and Docker or IPython Docker. Which image do I pull, right? So trying to whittle that down. So if you're interested in that topic, just post back over there. There's no decisions made yet. And we've been working over in the incubator, obviously, on dashboards and widgets. You know, we'll show some of that when we go to New York City this weekend, some new examples, and talking to people over there about security and whatnot. We're also looking at the kernel gateway over there. So this is the, you know, headless notebook server that allows you to provision kernels, and try to see what it takes to get a standard Jupyter notebook to talk to this kernel gateway, so you could provision a kernel remotely and not have to talk to it with 0MQ across the web and secure it and all those things. So it's really just a quick prototype to flush out all those issues. And we're documenting what we find as we go, and, you know, we'll see what we need to do next from there. Stephen?
All right. So last week I was in New York City for the meetups, and mostly was looking at how we package together the pieces of this final IDE or application, as it were. So there's a hefty set of notes on the issue I linked there, if anyone cares to chime in, as Dave said. Also converging on hopefully a fully working Jupyter.js services. We had some discussion on what exactly the life cycle of a kernel is, and we've established it's the actual ID of a kernel. It's not necessarily the WebSocket itself that you care about. It's the kernel ID on the server that determines the life cycle of a kernel. So that's now documented, and I'll link to that issue, so that if something happens to the WebSocket, it'll automatically try to restart itself, assuming that unless it's told out of cycle that it's actually dead, then it's going to try to restart itself. Let's see, what else did I have? If you try to upload a Giant file on Giant is dependent, it will crash the browser from the Jupyter dashboard. So now I add a little check to see if the file is above 15 megabytes, it will refuse to upload it. The true workaround is to actually use a chunked binary upload, which is possible. It just requires some re-architecting and probably a change to a REST API somewhere. So that will defer, but at least for now, you won't have this crash scenario. And then I'll look. Next task is to take the lessons learned from the packaging and actually try to make a demo plugin loader that will eventually be the what we call phosphide top level entry point that will load your plugins and hook everything up. So that's about it.
All right, I guess I'm up. So I guess just to recap, so I spent last week as well on site in New York City with all these guys. Kind of, I guess, give an overview of what these discussions were about. Among some of the things we discussed that were Jupyter specific, all of this talk about plugins and packaging and those sorts of things. The goal there is to be able to deliver single page applications that are composed entirely of plugins. And so you can imagine if we've got a single page Jupyter application, which contains like a notebook, a terminal, a text editor, a file browser, and also a package manager, and the user can basically open their package manager that's in that single page app, scroll through community contributed plugins, whether it's things like BQplot or some other sort of visualization library or some other sort of algorithmic or widgets or those sorts of things, install that plugin through the package manager and have that functionality become immediately available. So all that JavaScript gets dynamically loaded, hooked up, and all that sort of stuff. So that's basically the kind of environment that we're trying to enable to be built. That sort of flexibility and that sort of extensibility. So that's where all this new talk from plugins and packaging comes from, is for that particular type of use case. So I worked with those guys in New York City about fleshing out the architecture and API design for that. I finished up the Phosphor key map nightmare, if anybody was paying attention or following along with that. We had what we thought was a grand idea for making character-based key maps that would work seamlessly across all international keyboards. Like most things with the browser, that ended up being a failing nightmare because nobody implements the spec correctly, not even amongst ourselves on different operating systems. So the fallback for that is to abstract out basically the concept of a keyboard layout. And so by default, we include a keyboard layout that supports US English keyboards. Sorry for anyone that doesn't live in the United States. But what that enables us to do is now accept community contributions from people that have different keyboard layouts or live in different international localities that care enough to actually generate a PR with the keyboard layout for their particular system. So that's all done. It's up. It's available under Phosphor Key Maps. And if you live in the UK or somewhere else, or you're using like an Azerty keyboard or something like that, and you feel like opening a PR, those are gladly accepted. And what else? That was, I guess that's mostly it for last week. Question?
Yeah, would it be possible to have a widget where you basically ask people to press the keys in a specific order and automatically generate it up?
Yeah. So we can build something like that. We can build a little UI that assists the user in actually developing the key map for their particular keyboard. The hard part is that basically there's a disconnect between the letter that's printed on the physical key and detecting what the user pressed. Like the browser does not give us that information in a reliable way. And so basically what we could do for a widget like that, we would basically have to assume some sort of like ASCII key layout or ASCII keycaps, like some standard set of functionality, and then show that to the user and ask them to press the key on their keyboard that is associated with that particular keycap. So there's a lot of subtleties there. We can make it easy. We can have a widget that allows people to do that, but basically it would have to be an English-speaking keyboard. Like we wouldn't be able to handle like umlauted keys or any sort of accented keys if those are like the standard keys on the keyboard. In terms of having a widget that assists the user in developing these. At the core level, if somebody really just wants to start banging on keys and getting the key code and then manually typing what the character is, they can do that, and we can have a little more advanced widget for that as well. So that's now possible. We don't have those widgets yet, but we can certainly build them. So.
Okay, thanks,
Chris. Couldn't we just
so what's that? Was there another question?
Yeah, this is Jason. Couldn't we just make an input box that traps whatever key they pressed and coordinate that with the key code event that we get? So we don't have to ask them to press a specific key. We can just ask them to mash their keys down. Yeah, and we correlate the key code with whatever characters in the input box.
Yeah, the problem is that input boxes are case sensitive, and you want basically a case insensitive key. So the character that is actually typed does not necessarily correlate with the primary key that's silk screened on the keycap, and that's the one you want to use for the shortcut. So that could be like a 60% solution, but we'd still probably have some complicated logic around that.
Sure.
Right. Okay. So next up is Darian. Darian joins us this week. He had just joined our team full time and is now joining us on this project and all of the combined efforts that we're doing here. I'll let him talk a bit about what he's been working on, but everybody say hi to Darian.
Hi, everyone. So for the past 2 weeks or so, I've been working on extending a specific Phosphor.js widget, which is the grid panel. What we want is to take an arbitrary grid of widgets and make it the kind of thing you would use to construct your own dashboard. So you want to be able to drag and drop the widgets into a specific layout and alignment. In the notes, I actually linked to a jQuery-based library that does that, just so you can see sort of what I mean if it's not clear what I'm describing. So what I've been doing is extending the grid panel and kind of learning the Phosphor code base as I'm doing that. And that's pretty much it. I don't know who would go next.
But you might want, I think that IBM's people might have something with grid layout for cells. You might want to see how they are doing that. And the next person is Jason Grout, which is by phone. So Jason, it's your turn. Do you hear us? You're muted, probably.
there. Is that better?
Yes, it's
My audio
better.
is coming over the phone because it's a lot better quality than over the computer. So I've been involved with a bunch of the discussions and design and work that people have been doing here in New York. So with Steve and Chris and Dave and Brian and Sylvan. So various design discussions, worked on several PRs related to the 4.1 release, I guess, a week and a half ago. And I'm working on the CodeMirror input widget, trying to build it from the ground up to try to understand the packaging and plugin infrastructure a little better. And I've looked a lot at John's work as well.
Thank you, Jason. The next person is Cameron. Cameron, do you want to take over? Are you still there?
All right, so I'm Katie over here at Cal Poly, and this past week has basically been pretty busy for me. School is coming down hard, but we got the Jupyter Day logo out for this next event. We're getting all the marketing material done. The blog post was updated to the blog on the website, so you can see that with all the speakers, the times, everything you would need. I'm actually thinking of making a separate page on the website for meetups instead of hosting all the events and the kind of information on the blog post, because that might get it might get lost within the blog post as we go along and have more of these events. That's just an idea. Also, for the stand-up banner I was talking about last week, I was looking through a bunch of notebooks, but I couldn't really find what we would want for the screenshots on the front of it. So if you guys have any notebook requests that look really cool, graphical, please post like a link or something to a notebook on my report. That'd be great. And then, let's see. We got the blog theme, I think, sorted out. Safia might be able to touch on that, but still making some little changes with the Bootstrap theme that are kind of conflicting, some overall little bugs on the website that I still have to push. Still haven't pushed that. This week I was also doing several little design things on GitHub. I'm thinking I really want to play with the colors with the notebook, but that's a touchy subject. And maybe with like the input fields. So some people I've been talking at Cal Poly that actually use the notebooks want the colors to be changed because they're kind of conflicting with the overall theme of the notebook itself, with the orange and everything. So that's just the problem in itself, the sorting that out. I also last week went up to Bloomberg in San Francisco, which is pretty cool, seeing how they're using the notebook, seeing what they want to do in the next few months. And also got Jesse and Katie acquainted with our GitHub workflow and also how to talk to us on Gitter. So that was my week, and I'm going to pass it over to Katie.
So what I've been doing this past week, mostly the past 2 weeks, but especially this week, is just gearing up for Jupyter Day in New York City, and we have 4 days left. And so the last couple of things that I've been doing this week and I'm going to be doing the next couple of days, I wrote the blog post for the Jupyter Day, and that went up, handed off to Cameron for the design. And then I coordinated the speakers. We have 9 confirmed right now, which is super awesome. They'll be back. Woo! And I'm going to be finishing up finalized budget today for everything that's going into the conference and confirming all of our food and catering for the event. And then I'm going to be putting that all together into an organizer's guide so we can share it with other people who might want to have these events themselves independently from us. So that'll probably go up on the webpage that Cameron's going to make for Jupyter Day. So yeah.
And that's us at Cal Poly, or the ones that are here. All right.
Okay. I think I'm next. So most of the work I did last week was on adding a MongoDB storage backend to the binder registry. It was my first time playing with Go, and Kyle was super helpful in getting me acquainted with the language. There were a couple of bumps, but I eventually figured it out. For the rest of this week, I'm going to be figuring out a few more follow-ups from that pull request that was merged yesterday. I was at the Grace Hopper conference last week. I gave a little talk about the project and kind of what we've been doing and the direction we want to take. Attendance was meh. not because my talk was bad, I hope, but just because poor advertising. But got connected with a lot of interesting people in academia and industry who are using Jupyter. I took the blog theme that Cameron mentioned and set it up in a repository, which is linked on the HackPad. So anyone should be able to clone it on any Ghost instance. And you just have to restart the instance, and you should be just able to set up the theme on there. Focus for next week. There's like 2 issues I got to look into on TempNB, and a few stuff left over in the binder registry that I will hopefully be able to tackle throughout the rest of this week. And that is that for me, unless anyone has any questions.
So I have to wonder, I noticed that I'll get better attendance if I also sneak IPython into the title, because not everyone knows the rename. That ends up helping. It makes me feel bad because I feel like I need to embrace the new name, but I know that I have to like pull in from the previous namesake. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm up next. Yeah, so I did a little bit of TempNB work. Not much though. I've been mostly busy with stuff for work right now. We're doing a launch product next week. Yeah, so for TempNB, did one thing where we clean up previous pools. This ended up causing issues on like a restart or when someone just had one laying around that had the same kind of namespace. And then I was working on some other API endpoints, and I'm building some side stuff on TempNB instead, so I'm not affecting the current TempNB code base while I get some other things up, kind of going towards that whole binder proposal. And that's really just about it. I might have written more. Oh yeah, NBViewer is now in like a smaller Storm cluster retriggered event deploy. I really should get Nick hooked up with the access to that. He's like, no, I don't want it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Peace.
Think I'm up next. So yeah, as Kyle mentioned, we've been doing some fast and furious rollouts of NBViewer. So I think we're up onto the Jupyter.org theme now. It's just, kind of has to be a little bit weaponized because it's actually showing notebooks and stuff. And there's some new issues for everyone hates the scrolling bar at the top of NBViewer. So let's fix it. And a couple other little design things. Drop the drop shadow, which caused some outcry around the notebook. But again, consistent brand. Let's try and do it. Actually working on the slides 2.0 stuff, which I'm pretty excited about. And so I think we're going to be able to do some really, really cool things with that. Really going beyond what you can do with slides as traditionally is thought of, and more towards rich state, hierarchical state machine kind of presentations that move cell inputs and outputs around, resize them, stuff like that. So really excited about that stuff.
Hey, I think I'm next. Yeah, not much from me. So I worked with John on the IPy widgets release. I fixed a minor bug in threadlets and IPy kernel. And I've been working on Sphinx documentation for BQplot. And I was also participating in discussions with Brian, Chris, Dave, and Steve in New York City over the last week. That's it.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Do we have one person which is on the call who hasn't spoken and wants to say something?
Is that Jess? Oh, you asked if there is anybody.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't had time to work on anything this past week, so I don't have any updates.
Okay, just one thing, Cameron, if you want, we can try to put, and Katie, we can, on the Jupyter.org website, we can make the schedule, which will be easier to find for people, to go to jupyter.org/JupyterDay, and we can change the main website to say, hey, there is Jupyter Day in New York City if you want to join. I guess it could be a nice thing to have for days to do it. it will be easy for people to find things. And otherwise, thanks everyone. See you later. I will post the video on YouTube in a few hours. And have fun, and see you on the chat and on GitHub. Thank you. See you next week.
Ciao, ciao.
Yes.
Bye.